All right, recording in progress. All right, so hello everybody, and Maria, Sarah, hello. And Sarah, you don't have to mute yourself. You're going to, of course, chat, with this, on me, because I'll just go on and on. I mean, I just get on a topic and there's no, there's no stopping me, as you notice. So, if you have something to say, Maria, even you, there's a chat here. You can, type in a question or just, blurt in, because I'll just go on and on and on, because I just get too excited. All right, so today's chat is when medium. It's basically like, who are you? When mediums do readings, who are they talking to? How do you know who these people are, or or what they are, right, Sarah?
Absolutely.
I mean,
as a medium, it took me a while to figure out who I was talking to. I didn't have anyone telling me or anything. You had to learn.
How do you figure out who you're talking to?
So when I was younger, I knew I had a spirit guide named Judith, and my mom had a psychic party. And one day I was driving in my car and I said, Judith, Grandma hurt her arm. Please go be with her and help heal her. And I kind of thought it was a little like goofy, right? I didn't believe any of that. And the psychic party came over, and her name, excellent psychic, so I would like to recommend her to. Her name is Pat Beer. And she said, oh, by the way, Sarah, Judith went to be with her grandma when you asked her to. That was my profound moment of knowing spirit guides and getting probably the most valid confirmation I have ever had in my life.
Wow.
That's one way.
And those validations, I mean, it's fine and dandy to, do these readings, but like when you have the sitter, the person you're doing the reading for, they really need to validate, the information that you're getting. It's not that like for instance, when I'll do a reading, it's not like I don't trust spirit, because my story will just unfold and go and go and go. But it's nice to have, let's say if I'm doing a reading for Maria, I'll say, Maria, try not to say too much, just yes or no, as I keep going on and on. So does that make sense, or does that resonate with you? And you'll say yes or no, not really. And when you get that no, you try to pull out more information from it. But like Sarah, speaks to a guide.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about that last night, because I have guides, but I think I'm going to conjure up a guide to a mediumship guide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use my guides, but also in readings, I call forward a loved one in spirit for people, but I have them work with my guide and not always directly with me, because they can drain, so I have them work with my guide, and my guide helps relay the information to me. That
is so cool. And every medium does it so differently. For myself, I have guides to help me, but when it comes to doing readings, there's only one, connection, and that's to source. That's right through the crown chakra. That's going straight up to source. And you can't really get any higher than that for me. And then literally I just put out my hand and say, okay, I'm doing a reading for so-and-so, whoever needs to talk to this person, let's do this now. And that's it. However, when you do that, I mean, sometimes guides come in, sometimes you get a little angel information, and sometimes, well, most of the time, it's a spirit person.
Yeah. And that's where the validations come in. Sometimes people don't know in the moment what you're saying, because it's so overwhelming to feel the presence of their loved one coming through and acknowledging, oh yeah, that's definitely my loved one. And that's how I really feel it's time to move forward with the message. So I identify who they are and make sure we're on the same page. And then I move forward with the message. Now, people don't really always grasp it. And then later, they'll be like, I thought about that, or I rewatched it. I'm sorry, this is what that meant. This is what that is. I figured it out. We had our group reading, and she's actually Aubrey she's let me advertise anything I would like and use her name and her daughter's name and write them in my book. So after our reading, which everybody was on here actually, she sent me a validation of a picture of a stuffed snowman because it was adamant there was a stuffed snowman. And she had forgotten, but when her daughter passed away, she bought two, one to put at her grave and one that she kept that she was going to sit out, but she couldn't sit it out last year.
Oh,
So this year she got it out to sit out. And she
okay.
sent me that confirmation because in the moment she just could not remember at the time. It's
Yeah.
overwhelming.
Yeah. And sometimes, you have to say, okay, you know what, just this information is important. Put it on the back burner for now. For example, I did a reading a while ago, and it was something to do with a girl with little white socks and hat leather shoes, and I was 110% sure of this image, and the sitter was like, nope, sorry. I'm like, okay, think about it and just hold on to it. You may not understand that connection now, but just hold on to it. So a few days later, she's like, I just got it. She goes, and it resonates. I'm like, okay, well, good.
That happens. Yeah. And that's wonderful. Maria, I wanted to ask you, you've had some readings. What is your favorite way to receive information from spirit? How do you like to receive it? Do you like us to give you signs and symbols that you would understand? Did you like the blindfold style? What do you like, cards? How do you like to receive messages?
Yeah, I like when when you validate that is the person just telling me something that it resonates. Say, yeah, that's him or that's mom or so. I love to make sure that you're actually connecting with the right person. And then I say sometimes like symbols it make it to be like they're sending them to you, and it's a matter of figure out what that means. Sometimes I had a reading with another medium that she was, oh, and he says and he says and he says, but sometimes it didn't make a lot of sense, like but when you hear like one time someone told me about an anchor and how Donna said it didn't resonate at that time, but she said just keep it aside. So like 2 or 3 days after, I was watching a movie. It was like a common movie. I was watching it with my daughter, and at the end, it was like that. It was like a person that died, and at the end, she met with the guy. They hold hands, and there was that anchor on the hands, and my thing was always asking like I want to make sure that you're going to wait for me in heaven. I want to like reunite with you. And then when I saw those hands together in heaven with the anchor that he was saying, like it was so emotional. And then okay, it was him, it was right, this is what it meant. So yeah, and I like when you did, remember when you were telling me about the knife? You need to be open to understand the message, because the beginning I said, 2 men, a knife, oh my God, something's gonna happen. I said, wait, no. I just got this machete in Puerto Rico. It made me so happy. I know, and I knew that was what you were trying to tell me. And it's nice to understand that he acknowledges that I got it, and that's what he meant to happen. And I feel like so nice and peaceful, like I just love it.
You know what I'm looking forward to? I'm looking forward to like hooking up with Sara and see how she does these readings. Again, this is for the event in January on the 11th. But what Maria just said, you really need those little details. Like when she's talking, like I work, a lot of mediums use symbols, and spirit gives symbols. When Maria was talking, I'm seeing like a big pot of soup. I shouldn't say soup because it could not be soup. It was a pot of some kind of liquid, kind of whitish gray with these like little white things. So I was like, what is that? And it feels like there's like a female figure coming through, and I'm like, well, what's in the pot? And and it felt like I heard soup, and then like these white things. I'm like, well, what are those white things? And I hear from this female, beans. Tell her she's not putting enough beans in her soup. I'm like, okay. It's like little things like that where you would get information from, and when you feel it right here in your heart chakra and in your solar plexus, and you're not just beans and soup. Who does that? And when it's like in your imagination, oh, the grandmother were cooking. all the grandmothers cook, but like when spirit would come in and say something like, you know what, tell her those little white things, it could looks like the top of either garlic or like a white bean, tell her she's not putting enough in. And I'm like, well, how do you know she's not putting enough in? And I see her pointing because there's one here, and there's one here, there should be more. So it's a recipe information from, it feels like a, you know, like a female, like mom slash grandmother on the side. But you know, it's like little informations like that, and you just go on, and maybe the sitter, like maybe Maria, if that resonated with you, you know, you would say, oh, you know, yeah, I mean, I make a similar recipe constantly, and I kind of goof up on it. And if it's a no, then, you know, I would have to go back and say, okay, well, what is this pot of something? I would have to backtrack and get more information. And hopefully the spirit person is nice and doesn't yell or have attitude, which happens sometimes, you know. So as a matter of fact, today I went to the store to pick up lettuce. And I'm like, you know what? It's always fun just to, I don't know if you do it, Sarah, but just to, like when you walk by people, to see what you can, you know, pick up. And I walked by this older man, and I heard the name Jones. I'm saying to myself, Jones, well, that's a really generic name. And then I heard, no, it's not a name. I'm like, oh, we have somebody feisty here. And it was definitely a guy. And I'm like, well, what's with Jones? And he's like, tell him to stop being like the Joneses and don't worry about the neighbors. Just do what he needs to do at his house with his family and not worry about anybody else. I'm like, okay, I'm out of here. Goodbye. So going back to who you're connecting with, you can tell if it's a person by what I just said, if they have a personality that's a little feisty, or you know, something loving and tender, like Sarah said about, you know, her guides, and how that validation came through.
Well, you know, I also, when I work with loved ones in spirit, I take on their mannerisms. So it's almost like acting out a play too,
Yeah.
when I'm like, this is how they're doing it. They're really, really hyper, you know, like I try and describe that. But I kind of see them in my mind and how they look and how they behave, and what they want. So I think with taking on the mannerisms, it does help to describe their personalities.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's kind of a must, you know, for recipes. And there was many times when grandmothers would come in, or moms, and they talk about recipes that their kids are doing. And I mentioned that in my book in one of the chapters, that where I do quotes, and they say, tell her she's putting too much onions or not enough, or, you know, and it's quotes from spirit people about recipes, which is, you know, actually my really good friend since first grade, her mother died like a year or two ago, and she was all, you know, worried, sick. You know, I never got the recipe from, you know, for the pea soup, or the recipes that, you know, we do for Thanksgiving or Christmas. So it's actually a thing where women or people, you know, are concerned about recipes that their past loved ones used to make. It's actually a thing. It's crazy. Yeah.
Now, I'm concerned about mine, even from a, you know, a person perspective, not a medium perspective. I like our hand-me-down recipes. And some of them are written in a different language, so you know, I want to keep them.
Yeah. Sarah, when you do a reading, do you ever come across maybe somebody that is not so nice, and how do you deal with that?
Yes. So there are times when people don't alert me a little bit that, you know, it could be a sensitive reading. And I've had one person come through that drank antifreeze to commit suicide. And sometimes it's nice to know a little bit more about their personality ahead of time, but you just have to figure it out. And then I've had spirit be very pushy with me, threatening. I had one that was threatening with my daughter. So I told her to get her protection crystals on, because I knew the spirit was in the house. And she went and she brought her necklace, and she tipped her head to the side. She said, I'm not wearing this. It was scary. And then she went downstairs and she goes, I probably should put this on. So I had another medium I was talking to, and she said the same thing. She's like, that was the girl. Her name is Sarah. She was murdered not too far from my house. And she liked my house and she wanted to live here. And she was jealous of my children. That's all it was. Just jealous. So when I deal with spirits like that, I tell them that they have to leave. And I go through a process of making them leave with, varying prayers or home cleanses. But I also knew that I was going to be talking to a client that had a demonic attachment.
Ooh.
And when I knew that I was going to talk to them beforehand, so that was nice. Somebody told me, hey, I've got something wrong with me. I'm like, good, I can prepare. So I drew a chalk circle. I actually went out to the garage with the doors open to keep this stuff away from me. And I did a whole protection, and I actually burned sage the whole conversation, and I circled the phone so that the voice would stay in circle. I mean, it was a lot of work.
Wow.
And since then, you'll know who she is. She joins us and she's completely changed. We got rid of the attachment. She started learning Reiki. She's super spiritual and is working on so many wonderful things. So once she got rid of this horrible attachment, life was good. So
I think we were supposed to have a event about attachments and psychic.
Mhm.
I think we were,
Psychic
supposed to,
attacks.
we were supposed to do that, I think.
I
Yeah.
actually have the design for it already.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? Look them up for January.
Okay. Yeah, I have the design already, so might as well
Yes.
get it going.
Or whenever when you're up to it.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, I love finding out, when you connect with somebody, to find out their personalities, because every now and then you come across, a troublemaker. I mean, I don't come across what you do because I don't allow it.
Mhm.
I only, I have rules and regulations, and the lower vibrations I do not do. I do not allow it in my readings, in my aura, in my house. So it just never comes my way.
Yeah.
But every medium's different, and they have different gifts and abilities and things that they offer. So I'm glad that you do that.
Yeah, I like to do that because if there's a way that I can help someone rid themselves of that negative,
Absolutely.
it's something that I enjoy doing. I had a lot of problems growing up as a psychic child, and I definitely had horrible attachments when I was young because they just clinged on.
Mhm.
So yeah, I try and help people with that. That's one of the things I enjoy doing.
Yep. Not to, do a little, spoiler about the attachments, but since you chatted about it, being clairvoyant, really helps, because you can do I can do a body scan, and you can feel it when these things. There was a time where somebody literally came out and said, I'm cursing you and I'm putting a hex on you. I'm like, seriously? I go, don't you think I'm going to see this before you do? Thanks for giving me a verbal heads up. So
That's weird.
I know, right? So just as, shortly after that time, I got the heads up, which is kind of nice. So underlining when people, they put the horns on you and they tell you, it's kind of like, okay, I don't want to say it's nice, because, if they put a hex on you, that's horrible. But when they warn you, it's almost like on some level, they kind of care. And it's like, it's really hard to explain, but giving a heads up was a nice thing to do, even though they were doing a really bad thing. Anyway, so I got a little heads up. So I start feeling happy. I'm pretty much always happy, except yesterday was a really bad day, but today super happy. And then all of a sudden I felt a severe mood change. I'm like, whoa, what just entered the room? And again, on topic of today, who are we talking to? When your body feels different, when you do a 180, like 1 minute you're happy and everything's good, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, you feel nauseous, and you're in a bad mood for no reason at all. Know that there's something around you that shouldn't be there. So I'm like, okay, I'm aware of you. Let me see who you are. So I just closed my eyes and just turned up my eye really, really high, and literally saw almost on my back, like this dark thing trying to get on me. I'm like, oh, no, you don't. No, you don't. I can see you. So, I took care of it, and it's like, nice try, but that's never going to happen again. because they could not get on me, because like I said, I don't deal with lower vibrational, so this thing was not able to attach itself to me because I don't allow it, and I have enough trust in my guides, my source, my angels, and myself to prevent that, which is super cool.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so that's the lower vibrationals, but when you chat with the higher vibrationals, and I don't know if you remember this, Maria, last time when we were doing Q&A, I had mentioned that you can tell who you're speaking to or who is in your presence, your energy field, by the way it feels. And, and excuse me, and again, angels have a very, very high vibration, and you can feel it by, denseness in the air, which I do these events, you constantly see me like I'll do that, and it's like, they're especially the big ones like Michael and Metatron, they push that air right in your aura, but they feel different, and you get those little goosies, and the hair back here stands up, and you get these tingles in your crown, and your heart thumps. So those are the signs. Sarah's shaking her head, so you get that too, right, Sarah? Yeah.
When I do readings live lately, I've been getting tingles down my legs, and I used to kind of get them in a variety of places, but lately it's just been my legs.
Why do you think that is?
Confirmation, grounding, lower end grounding.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I cross my legs, which is, I need to keep them flat. So, yeah.
I mean, that happens a lot too, when from the knee down would be cold or goosebumps. Oh, there's Walter.
I see him.
He disappeared down to the white. There he goes. He went into the light.
I hope not.
Oh yeah, so lost track. So there's times when, like from the knees, and that's very important. When you feel chills in a certain body part, don't say, "Ooh, I feel chills, from here or here." Find out why. Like I know for myself, it would be just on arms or head, or on the knees down, and from the knees down, like it depends on how it feels. Like I went to a friend's house, and from the knee down, it felt cold, but it also felt heavy, and there was some shenanigans going on in her house, so I had to work on that. I did a house clearing for her, but it felt heavy. But sometimes when it's from the knees down and it feels light, it's either a child or a pet.
Oh, that makes sense.
Because of the height.
Yeah.
Because of the height. And that's just for me. I mean, it's different for everybody. But I'm like, why from the knee down? And I'm like, who are you? Ask. And you might hear child, or pet. When I was in the woods with my friend, Cindy, the one I mentioned in my book, I saw this huge 8-foot creature, which was amazing. And then it was from the knees down, I felt chills. And I'm like, I said, Cindy, can you see anything? She's like, no, because she can't. She's not visual. She feels. But she did say that she saw from 3 feet down. She goes, I see like waves, and that's exactly where I got the chills on my legs. And you have to ask questions. You have to be a psychic detective. Who am I talking to? Why this? Why that? It's so much work sometimes. And I just think it was like just the smaller things that would be in the woods, like the fairies. I'm not really into fairies. I saw them once, but I really don't connect with fairies. But just the smaller creatures that live in the forest, in the spirit world, I just sensed, just kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
So, Maria, do you have any questions? I mean, we're just going on and on and on and on. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, let me see. Remember, like when I started the group, and thank you, Sara, for inviting me again. I'm so happy. It was through a reading that I was having with her. Like I was asking her, because I do feel like vibration and tinglings on my face and things like that. And I have had several readings, and people say, well, it's gonna develop and you're gonna have more of those and things like that. And that's why it came my question to you before, like how you distinguish between who's coming, because how I heard, like you have like your guides and it can be angels also talking, and also of course everything started because feeling my husband as well. So I started to say, okay, so maybe if I tell anyone to be out of my area and call one by one to see if I can see a different, but I kind of start everything the same. My nose starts tingling, then I feel that pressure on my face, my jaws, and then sometimes I feel it on my body, but it's the same. So sometimes I say, how can I know which one it is? So,
I think a lot of it has to do with what are you doing in the moment in which they would be coming to you? What are you thinking about in the moment? Who are you drawing towards you as you're experiencing different things in life? So for me, I feel personality. So I'm like, okay, I know that's not my spirit guide's personality because they're my best friends. But then I'll feel personalities come through, and then I'll start getting visions of what someone looks like. And that's how I decipher the difference between a loved one in spirit and my spirit guides. Now, if an angel comes through, I see that very bright. And I've only really actually tried to sit and call an angel one time. And that was in a class that I was in, and I still have my prediction sitting in my book that I wrote it down. I don't normally work with angels. If they come through, I guess that would be great, but I don't really work with them. I don't call on them or anything. So maybe I should start looking more into that, but that's how I decipher the difference. I feel what that person's energy is. I try and identify what they look like. And when it's your guides, if you're trying to figure out who your guides are, that's one of those moments where you just sit and meditate and start thinking of facial features and time periods and clothes. You can just make some notes down and then write the first name that comes to your mind down, because most likely they're giving you that name.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I did when I sat down on this table. Well, there used to be this table over here used to be behind me. And I sat down at the table and I had my little pen and paper and I said, okay, today I'm going to meet my guides because I don't know who they are. This was like 3 years ago or so, maybe more. Time goes by so fast. And I'm like, is it important that we know who our guides are? I mean, it's going to be different for everybody, but for me, not really. Same thing with angels. It's not really important who they are. If you happen to know, that's amazing. I happen to have, a very close relationship with a handful of angels, so I know who they are when they enter the room. But for the most part, you just have to, it's good to know that they are there to help, regardless of their name or what they look like. That's kind of number one. Anything else is really good to get if you do get names and descriptions and whatnot. So anyway, I'm sitting back here with my little pen and my special pen and paper. It's like, okay, today I'm going to meet my guides. So let's start with, whichever guide. And I believe we have several, pretty much everybody has several, whole bunch of guides, not just one. And then, like Sarah just said, a name popped in, John. I'm like, John, okay, that's very generic. And so I'm like, okay, fine, John, write it down. And then I started seeing things like blue and colors, and John came in again. So every time the name John appeared in my mind, I would put a check next to it. Finally had like 4 or 5 checks. I'm like, okay, your name is John. Got it. And as soon as I said that, that kind of stopped, the name. But I'm like, okay, well, what do you look like? Who are you? And then I saw the word tubby. I'm like, are you fat? And I was like, oh, it's like, yeah, okay, you're tubby. That's cool. I'm tubby too. It's all right. And then, then I saw like a shield. I'm like, a shield. I'm like, a shield. I go, are you a cop? Boing. And it just hit my solar plexus like, yes, I'm a cop. I'm like, that is cool beans. And then, no, I'm sorry. The name wasn't John, it was Scott. It was Scott. Then after that, another name came in and it was John. I'm like, oh, is this another guide? And heard no. Then I saw the letter K. I'm like, what is going on? I was like, I'm just going to sit back, and until you're done giving me, I'm just sitting back, and I'm just, writing things down like you do, automatic writing, Sarah. So I wrote down K and then 9. I'm like, oh, K9. I go, that's your dog? Bingo. So I have a cop called Scott, and he has a dog, K9, and he's tubby. And what's interesting is when I sat down to meet my guides, and Maria, you could do this too, which is so easy to do. I'm going to sit down today and I want to meet my guides. Anybody can do this, and just have paper and pencil. And the first thing that comes to you mind, just write and write and write and write. Don't filter anything. But I left out a really important part. When I first started doing that, I saw like, how if you were to take something reflective outside and turn it, and the sun will hit it and it would shine. I saw this like this long, like a horizontal reflection. I'm like, what is that? Then I saw the word sword. I'm like, Michael. I said, Michael's here, because he's always with me and he lets me know he's here. But right before I did that connection, he came in with his sword, because Michael has a sword. He's the angel protection, to let me know he's there. I'm like, okay, Michael, thanks, for hanging out. But so Scott, and what's interesting is, how do I know that I didn't make this up? How can it be validated? Shortly after, a few days after I did that, I went out for a walk, and I had a feeling that somebody was behind me, and I'm very aware of my surroundings, because you have to be, right? And so I'm like, I feel like somebody is over to my right, and I was ready to kick butt is what I was going to do, because I was walking, by myself, and I'm like, I'm going to kick your butt. And I turn around and I see a dog, but it was a ghost dog. It was a spirit dog. And I'm like, and it was a shepherd. And I'm like, who are you? And it was John. I'm like, are you John? And he was transparent. He was not 100% solid. He was like 80% solid. He was a little transparent, but he was with me, watching me, walking with me, because these are my protector guides, Scott and his canine dog. So that was validated. Of course, it was validated for me, but certainly one of those things that can't be proven to anybody else. Otherwise, other than just you got to take my word for it. You just can't make this stuff up. Yeah, you can make it up if you have a really good imagination, I guess. What do your guides look like, Sarah?
I actually have pictures of them. My husband drew them. So Judith has a beautiful, like 1940s motherly look. She's my lover, like type person. She gives love advice and really soft-hearted. And that's how I know when she's coming through, because I feel like a warm hug from her. She feels like a warm hug. And Ingrid is from the 14th century-ish. And she brings in health messages. She brings in education, career. I think she's just very matter of fact. So that's how I tell the difference between them, because when I start to say, I would like you to step forward, and before I say that, Judith has already been like, I'm here. I don't even need to ask, but
that's nice. That's cool.
When I'm online or I'm in front of someone, they have no idea what I'm thinking or doing when I'm not speaking. So I talk through what I'm doing so people understand what I'm doing, and they can just hear that dialect between me and spirit, or spirit and I. So that's one thing that I do. And I have a goddess. And one day I found out the goddess. And I was trying to figure out her name, and I wrote Akitika. And then I looked at it and I'm like, wait, that's the same spelling forward and backwards. I am not that smart or creative to do that.
Wow.
I can't do that. Okay.
I can't do that.
And I wrote down her beautiful description and everything about her. She comes to protect me. Yeah.
That's nice. That's awesome.
She's my protector. And she only comes in an absolute emergency.
And I love that stuff where it's so bizarre that you just can't make that stuff up. That's how you know it's so legit, I've learned some lessons along the way. Not when you're driving, don't talk to spirit. I mean, that's actually in my rules and regulations that, I kind of learned the hard way. I almost went off the road a couple of times. And luckily when I drive, I have everything within like 2 miles of my house, so I don't go too far. But it was a couple of years ago when I'm like, I wanted to, get better, healthy. And so I'm like, and I conjure up guides, I call it the changing of the guides.
Yeah.
And you can do that, you can definitely do that. You can do anything. I mean, we are in charge, not the spirit world. That's really important. We are in charge. Spirit is not in charge of us. We are, we are in charge. So I was like, you know what? I'm driving and I'm thinking to myself, I was like, you know what? I think that I would like a guide to help me with my health. No sooner did I think that to myself, that in front of me, I saw an image appear, and I'm driving. So on the road in front of me, I saw a nurse that looked like Nurse Ratched. Did you see one
Oh, yeah.
to the T? I'm like, and I kind of swerved. I'm like, okay, please no spirit people when I'm driving. These are my rules. And then she starts talking to me. She's like, well, you called me in, didn't you? I'm like, yeah. I said, but she's like, no buts. And she has attitude. Like, I'm actually a little frightened of her. she's and I said, oh, are you a doctor? She's like, no, I am a nurse. I am not. I'm like, okay. So I tread lightly around Nurse Ratched. Because she looks just like it, which is fine. But I'm thinking, I'm like, why is she such a B? Because she needs to be, for me to sorry, I just got a text from my son. I need a strong, health guide, because if I didn't have one, it would work for me. So it's interesting how a really tough cookie showed up for me, to conjure up. And I mean, I made other guides to ones that helped me with technology, and it every time
I need one of those.
No, seriously, you can use mine. His name is Techie Ted, and whenever something goes wrong when I was writing my book, I'm not making this crap up. When I was writing my book, it would freeze, or if I was on, Facebook, when I used to be on Facebook, and I'd have all these people going live, and something would happen. I'm like, oh, holy cow, what do? I'm like, okay, Ted, please fix this. And every single dozens of times. And every time I called him in, within minutes, whatever electronic issue it was resolved every single time.
That's amazing. I call my all my team members that are in spirit, my guardians and the angels that I hardly ever talk to, and my goddess, I call them my soul guardians.
Oh, that's cool.
So, yeah, I call, and then Missy, my she's like my boss, she calls them her team in spirit. Mm-hmm. So we just kind of have our own things, what we think of them as.
Yeah. I know quite a few of my medium friends. They have a team. They call them their team or whatnot. And it's I know that I have like a team of angels around me, because one day I meditated on it, closed my eyes, and I saw like a horseshoe around me, like white, all around the back of me. Sometimes I can just feel it, they just, my back is like cool or tingly or whatnot. And again, going back to today's topic, how can you tell who you're talking to or who's around? It's by the way it feels.
Feelings.
Yeah, a lot of time. Maria, do you have any more questions, or are you just enjoying us chatting?
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. But you said something earlier that you don't allow like low energy and things like that. How do you do that? Like, it's just
like I said before, I am the boss, and I have two very powerful angels around me 24/7. It's Michael and Metatron. And it's just, like I said, Sara does her thing, I do mine. Like, everybody's different. Every medium has a different job. And it's not like, oh, I wish I could do that, or I can't do that. Every medium, every person has a job, a gift, an ability. Sara does what she does, and I do what I do, and I signed up for this. And, it's been validated several times. Years ago, when 2014, when all this really came to a head for me, I've been through spiritual school. All my angels took me through spiritual school. What does that mean? That means I went through everything from A to Z that you could possibly experience in the spiritual realm. That includes seeing angels, dead people, monsters, gargoyles, shapeshifters, ugly things, faceless things, angels, everything. You probably can't mention something that I haven't experienced. And it's so, spirits like Donna, I'm going to show you these things so you know what they are, so you know what they feel like. So you can compare, oh, this is an angel, this is good, this is a gargoyle, this is a shapeshifter, this is what it looks like, this is how, so I experience both realms. I don't know if I mentioned this about the gargoyle in my kitchen. Did I mention that to you guys during one of these chats? Maybe, maybe not. It was about a couple years ago. I'm in the kitchen. It was the eve of Christmas Eve, making cookies, happy as can be. And I have a tray of cookies in front of me, and what appears in front of me was a gargoyle, and it was nasty and gnarly and stinky, and it was doing inappropriate things. And I'm like, I just stopped and I saw it. It was in my kitchen. I'm like, seriously, dude? I go, this is Christmas. I am making cookies. Get your butt out of here. I see you. I know it. It's not even funny. I'm having a conversation with this thing, but I don't, on the occasion that I do see a lower vibrational thing, I'm not saying I don't come across them. I change the vibration. That's not the right words. I wrap it around light and love, ribbons, pink, amazing things, and I send it to my source and let my source take care of it. It's not my job to do that. It's my job to be aware of it in case it's, on somebody I'm doing a reading that I know I could see it. So they're just little lessons that Spirit gave to me just so I know. And some of the things are pretty nasty. They smell, they're scary, they're ugly. But I have no fear of that. Why? Because I have two badass angels next to me always, more than that, but those are the two big ones. So I hope that answers your question. Yes. All right, Sarah, you want to add anything else to chat?
No, I think I'm good.
You good?
Yeah. I keep looking over that. I'm looking over at my dog because she's sick. So I keep watching her. I'm like, is she breathing? So yeah, I'm pretty good. I deal with things in some other ways too, because I do home clearings and stuff. And I had a little girl who's a good friend of our family. And actually her dad just passed away from COVID. She was 7 or 8 at the time. I think 7, actually. It's been a while. And she was like taking her sister's teddy bears into her room and slashing them. She'd get knives and slash them and stuff. Really like erratic behavior that wouldn't come from this sweet little angel, because she is wonderful. And there was a creature there that was basically like eating her mind. And she told her, because she's psychic, real psychic, she told her dad that she was dreaming of snakes and there's a snake monster. Or a snake man. She called him Snake Man. Oh. Well, I didn't talk to her, but I was telling her dad, I'm like, there's a snake man in the closet, or a snake monster is what I called it. And I started doing a home clearing and I got it out of the house, but I had to get it off the property. And I had to go back. It was such a big home. And it was crawling on the roof. And I said, I think it's crawling on the roof. And they sent me a picture of their dog staring out the window of the garage roof where I said it was. Then I went back and I saw it crawling around on the roof. And I had to get off the property. It dropped me to my knees. I was dry heaving. This thing was straight dangerous. And they had a colonial home with the pillars. And they had one of those lights that was a pendulum and it would swing. This thing was way too big to be swinging. That monster got on it. And it was swinging and it was rocking. It was huge. My husband and the owners were outside watching this happen. I finally got off their property. And when I did, their daughter changed completely. She was helping, being sweet and loving. No more bad things were happening. And another thing I like to do for kids is I empower them. If they're a psychic kid, I help them learn how to make little moon water and pray. And we put it in a squirt bottle. They can spray their room.
Oh, that's nice. That's a great idea. Yeah.
It makes them empowered. It gives them some control. So I try and do I have quite a few things for kids that I like to do, but
That's nice.
that I do see monsters, and I had my husband draw it. So I do have a sketch of that, and I don't share it with too many people because it's, it's kind of scary.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I could clearly, sketch this gargoyle and a shapeshifter, but I don't want to give it that energy to manifest it in a physical. I will not do that.
Oh yeah, I do let them draw. I like to see it on paper because the parents wanted to know what it looked like,
Sure. Yeah.
but I don't share it with people.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, they wanted to understand what was in their house. And they were good friends of ours. Now I haven't drawn anything for anyone else. We have drawn my spirit guides though, but that monster was the worst thing and the worst experience I've ever had with any spirit ever.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a few people.
It wasn't a spirit, it would have been an interdimensional being. Sorry.
Right. I mean, sometimes I just say spirit just as a general grouping of beings, aliens, fugglies, whatever you want to call them. But I mean, what's very creepy to me is when I see a physical person, like I'm looking at you gals, and they have no face, or their face looks, my daughter and I years ago, we were out at some kind of Halloween tour right here in town, and we're staring at this one woman, and I'm looking at her, and I was like, this is interesting. And I look at her and she looks at me and she goes, are you looking at that lady? I'm like, yeah. She goes, her face is gone. I'm like, her face is gone. She had no face. And she was talking and she was right in front of us. I'm like, okay, I don't know what that is, but it's not my business today. And it just didn't feel like it's something that I needed to address because she was hosting this whole shindig. So it's like, okay, hi Walter, how do you address that? Say, excuse me, but where's your face? How come you don't have a face? Get locked up, but anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that is actually a study that Yale is doing on psychic mediums who have at one point in their life been committed to a hospital mental institution.
Oh yeah, sure.
So I got a letter to be in the study because my parents did not understand why I was hearing voices. I think they thought I had a horrible mental illness.
Yes, that's actually very common.
They put me in the hospital and there was no end date to my stay. It was whenever they felt like I was well. Yeah. So I faked it until I made it and got out of there in 7 days.
Wow. And that's so unfortunate. I mean, back in the day when mediums, they see things or hear things, they were known as crazy and they got locked up or put on meds and it got worse.
Or murdered. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting though, now that I think of it, this is super creepy. Down my street is where I saw this, because I walk just about every day. And, I was walking by the crossroads. I had this feeling, not a very good one. So I'm walking and I turned back and look at me and there's a woman at this one house and her face was gnarly. I was like, holy shit. And I'm like, okay, and then the thing of it is you say you don't work with angels. I just don't ignore it. I call my angels and I say, not to protect me, but take care of that, and I don't have to say, okay, Michael, John, Jezebel, whoever. I just say, take care of that, please. And, so it's not my job to do that, in most cases. But interestingly enough, that was the house. Now I think of it, somebody had committed suicide in that house. They, shot himself.
Yeah, that makes it hard.
Yeah, and I'm like, and now these pieces are coming together again. I had walked by that house, and happy as could be walking, and all of a sudden I felt despair, like I wanted to cry, and I wanted to just fall down and end my own life. I'm like, what is going on? I am walking. having a great time. Next thing I feel like I want to end my life. Again, like I said, before, Maria, I said, when something comes on that quickly, it is not yours. Just note how you feel, just push it back, ask your angels. Again, this is why I use angels. Angels, this is a bit much for me, push it back, and it goes away, and process what just happened. And say, like Sara, you said before, when Maria, sensed these things, what are you doing? Where are you? What are you thinking about? Stop and look at your surroundings. So again, I was right at the house where that suicide was committed. So I walked right through that energy that probably will always be there. The residual energy that creates ghosts, but it's residual energy.
Mhm.
Hefty.
Yeah, I've had that happen before too, where I've been in spaces with residual energy.
Mhm.
That's a weird thing, and it is hard for
Weird
people
thing.
to understand.
Yep.
They're like, wait a second, so it's just an imprint, or they're like, well, where's the person at? I mean, it's hard for people to understand, where's the soul energy? Are they there, or is it just an imprint? Why is this happening? I mean, it's confusing, and it's the other side. We don't have all the answers, but
That's right. And I know you have to go, we're coming up on an hour, but again, to conclude this topic of who are you, the times when I do a house clearing, some people I know, crazy, every single time they could do a house clearing, it's the boogeyman. I'm like, guys, seriously? They're already, got the Ghostbuster outfit on because they're going to get the demons before they even get there every single time. And, I know your experiences are different from mine, Sara, but, 9 times out of 10, it is not, I mean, in my cases, it is not a demon. I did this house clearing, and, all kinds of bizarre things were going on. And I, again, I said, okay, angels, I had Michael with me, whatnot. And some other angels, Ariel, Ariel, she's like a piece of lace. She's very, she's in charge of the moon phases, but Cancer, moon's my ruling planet, so she kind of floats around by me as well. But anyway, so these angels are around me just to calm me down and get me information. I'm like, who are you? What is going on in this house? And also I locked into the homeowner, and I saw her throat chakra. I'm like, I said, what's with your throat? Because I have throat cancer. So little by little pieces, came together. And what happened, it was residual energy from fighting that went on inside that house between some family members. But it was so awesome because once we pinpointed what was going on, Sara, if you have to go, scoot away, I'm just winding up.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
No, that's okay. Once you find out, what it is, then all of a sudden everything makes sense. This woman has throat cancer because she's using she's not being heard. She's not being listened to. She can't voice her opinion to her kids, her daughter dating somebody really bad. And she's constantly, trying to vocalize. When you block a chakra, it's coming back and fester. That's the fact, Jack. I've seen it happen over and over and over and over. So I just went in there, called in Michael, put some crystals on the windowsills, opened them up, shoot away that residual energy, and said, Michael, clear out these rooms of the residual energy. That week she broke up with her husband and the house cleared. So
yes,
that's how I work with angels.
Not every house I go into is super spooky. That was just like the worst one I've gone into with.
I would have quit that day, Sara. I seriously, if I saw that, I would have quit.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
Well, I've been in homes where a neighbor lady wanted to keep the property, but it wasn't hers. You know what I mean? Like, you have regular spirits most of the time. Like you said, it really is usually people.
Yeah, most of the time people. All right, ladies. I thank you for joining. Sara, I know you have to go. I have to go as well. My son is texting me. He's got some kind of job interview. I have water on my lap, and all kinds of exciting, fun things. Maria, thank you for joining us again. And I will be uploading this to our group. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.